Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about maybe our hardest video yet that Joe and I have had to tackle, which is our Dynasty cornerback rankings with tiers. Yes, I know I said cornerback. A lot of leagues just do defensive backs, let alone we're talking about cornerbacks. But Joe and I took on the challenge. Both him and I are prepared to give our rankings with tiers, and let's give this a roll, Joe.
Hike!
So who do you got for tier number 5?
All right, in tier 5, I've got 24, Taron Johnson, 23, Darius Slay, 22, Jalen Ramsey, 21, Rasul Douglas, and 20, Byron Murphy.
Interesting. Okay, you and I are going to take a little different approach here. On 24, I've got Jair Alexander. 23, Marshawn Lattimore. 22, Marlon Humphrey. 21, Xavier Howard. And 20, James Bradbury. Now, when we do this, you and I could be drastically all over the board on this. I don't even think there's a point of reference for most people. Even if you were looking this online, you probably might not even be able to find it. So here's my logic on this. Guys like Alexander, Lattimore, Humphrey, I mean, these guys are, have been highly regarded as some of the best cornerbacks in the league. But that's the trouble with rating corners, because if you're too good, you're not going to get the targets, you're not going to get the opportunities. We saw that with Marlon Humphrey last year. He was fantastic. And as a result, I mean, he in our league, Joe, I mean, he is cornerback 78. Prior to that, though, he was cornerback 22, cornerback 17, and cornerback 2. So I still think he's a good corner. And if, there was a better way to measure corners, I think I'd put him way higher. But it's one of those things where it's hard to do. Same thing with a guy like Lattimore. He's had some injury issues, but cornerback 56, 63, but before that, 5 and then 14. So, I mean, these guys are regarded as some of the top corners. That's why I put them here. Do you have any of these guys?
I don't have any of your lists there.
Wow. You don't have any of them?
I don't know.
What made you not put them on there? Was that just because, like what I was saying, these guys are big names, but they can't, it doesn't translate from a fantasy perspective?
Yeah, I really tried to, focus on the corner points in our league and looking at guys like interceptions and the pass deflections, and then also kind of their tackle output and how consistent they've been. Yeah. So, I mean, these guys, they're great names and everything. I thought about Xavier Howard, but I'm worried about where he's going to go now that he's not going to be with the Dolphins. And it could be better for him, but he's also a guy that's not getting any younger either. So,
see, I view that as better for him. And if he does go to Houston, like the rumors are saying, I would love that move if he went to Houston. I think that would be a fantastic move to be across from Derek Stingley Jr.
Yeah, makes me like Derek Stingley a lot more because that's the thing. And I always try to think of teams like that have the double corner situation like that, because then you can't go away from them. So, that's also something you got to think of when you're looking at the cornerback positions as well.
Yeah, I felt like I had to include Bradbury and Howard, even though they're going to be pushing 31. I mean, in our league, Bradbury's been 39, 10, 5. Howard's been 38, 27, 6, 1. These guys have just been too relevant and too good. I'm going to strongly disagree with you on Douglas and Ramsey. I have them, but I have them way later. So this will be interesting. I'm surprised because you like Ramsey. Are you just scared based on the injury situation? Because he has been very good.
He has been. I'm just worried about how the Dolphins are using him. I know he was injured, but he didn't really have the best season this past year with the Dolphins. And it was really the Rams who were able to unlock him and create that star position for him. And that's what made him relevant in our league. So I'm nervous that does he just go back to being, not that elite player? I know he's an elite player in the NFL, but for our league and for fantasy purposes, is he going to get back to where he was with the Rams? And that's what scares me.
Well, he did well with the Fangio system. And because
Evero is a part of the Fangio.
Evero is a product of Fangio, is what I'm saying.
But even with the Fangio thing, like I know he was coming off the injury in training camp and stuff. I give him somewhat of a pass for that, but wasn't that great with the Fangio this past season. I wanted to put these guys higher, but I use this tier just as kind of the older guys that I had to have in here, because it just seems like the younger guys perform better, and teams aren't afraid to target them.
What's your reasoning against Douglas, though? I mean, Douglas has been cornerback 9, 6, 9, and 18.
Well, this is Dynasty, so
I mean,
he's only got
29.
Right. So then is he going to be in Buffalo longer than just this year? Because I like him in Buffalo, but will I like him if he changes teams after this year? Just something I thought about. And that's what I mean. Corners are just so tough. Like a lot of these guys are approaching free agency or just have, a couple years left in their deal. Then what's going to happen? And for some of these older guys, it's kind of what I was worried about. But Douglas is a great player. He went to the Bills and he was good. And that's what I mean. Like, I like him on the Bills, but if he's only going to be on the Bills for that 1 year, I don't know.
I think he will be here for at least the next 2, in my view.
Yeah.
Based on his contract situation. But we'll see. I don't have Slay on there. Thought about it, but he's even older than a lot of these guys we're talking about. And I didn't think about Byron Murphy.
This is my older group here. I feel like I had to have Slay on there. Just looking at his points in our league, he's just been far too consistent, and didn't feel right about not having him in here.
All right, so who do you got, Joe, in tier number 4?
All right. In tier 4, I've got at 19, Jalen Johnson, 18, Asante Samuel Jr., 17, Deontay Banks, and 16, Christian Gonzalez.
Okay, at number 19, I've got Nate Hobbs, 18, Teron Johnson, 17, Patrick Surtain, 16, Tyson Campbell, 15, Tariq Woolen, and then 14, Tyreek Stevenson. Interestingly enough here, I do not have Deontay Banks, Asante Samuel, or Jalen Johnson in my top 24, which probably shouldn't come to much of a surprise because corners is such a wild card. I thought about Jalen Johnson. He was ranked very high according to PFF, which I did look into a little bit just to kind of see, in our league, a guy like Benjamin St. Juste was high, but he was just really bad. I just thought he's probably not going to start. So I wanted to consider that. So that was a tough one. It was kind of one of those situations where it's like, I put Tyreek Stevenson here, but is Tyreek Stevenson only as good as he was because he was across from Jalen Johnson? That's the thing I don't know. And that's what kind of makes me worried about him. So I don't know what your thoughts on Stevenson. I mean, he's going to be 24 years old. He was cornerback 6 in our league. So I don't know. That was a tough one for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm a lot higher on Tyreek Stevenson than you are.
You are? Okay. So you're not worried about that then?
Well, the main factor for me is you hear today polls says he's going to do everything in his power to get Jalen Johnson back for the Bears. So my thought is as long as Jalen Johnson's back on a long-term deal, Tyreek Stevenson should be good because, Johnson played pretty well, but guys were kind of afraid to throw his way, so they're throwing at Tyreek Stevenson. Jalen Johnson remains. I don't see why Tyreek Stevenson can't keep doing what he was doing.
That's fair. And then, I know people are going to probably be surprised I have Teron Johnson so high. I think for me, I didn't want to, but it's so hard to deny his consistency. In our league, he's been 11, 20, 31, 14. That's just you can't really beat that. There's so much volatility in the cornerback position to have some sort of consistency like that. And he's probably one of the best nickel corners in the league. So I felt like he made sense. I guess I struggled. I thought about Deontay Banks. But I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know if he was any good. Was he? He was decent in our league as far as scoring goes. I know he's a younger player. Do you know how good he was as an actual corner?
I didn't look into his PFF grade or anything, but I just was going based off his draft pedigree and how he was rising up on people's boards, and people ranked him as a pretty high corner. And then I looked at his numbers, and he played 15 games, played pretty well, and got a decent amount of, he had a good amount of tackles, and then got the pass deflections, had a couple interceptions, and that's just his rookie year. I think he can continue to build on from there.
Now, do you have Woolen or Campbell or Surtain?
I have Surtain. I don't have Campbell or Woolen. I thought about Tyson Campbell.
Wow, why not Woolen? You feel like are you nervous? I mean, he was cornerback 4 and then cornerback 34 this past season for us.
But he just what concerns me is his actual play on the field was just terrible this year. And the Seahawks, I mean, I'm pretty sure they were considering benching him. Like it got to that point. Like I don't know what happened to the guy because his rookie year he was
Phenomenal.
He was great, getting the interceptions, and then something happened this past year, and I'm just concerned that he didn't play that well. I know the Seahawks weren't real happy with him, and I wasn't sure how that impacts him.
Well, I mean, it's your thought though that they've got Witherspoon and Woolen, so that's where possibly the value is on that. I think I'm just counting more on his year 1 production versus year 2 production, but you might be right as to leaving him out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I considered both guys. At the end of the day, I just left them out.
Yeah, Campbell, he's I believe he's 24 years old. In our league, he's been 23, 530. He's been pretty good as a younger corner. I believe he was a 2nd-round pick. I am surprised you put Surtain in there. I know you complain about him quite a bit, but you must have thought that he was worth putting up higher, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I know I complain about him as a Broncos fan, but I did see he had 12. Surprisingly, he had 12 pass deflections in our league. I did not realize that because I always make fun of him because he's just always in position to make the tackle, but doesn't really make a play on the ball unless he's playing flag football in the Pro Bowl. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of talk about the Broncos getting a opposite corner to him, and I feel like if they are able to do that and get somebody better than the Mathis of the world or Fabian Moreau, if they can actually get a strong guy. I mean, they're supposedly very interested in L'Jarius Sneed. If that happens, I like Surtain more.
Yeah, I mean, in our league, he's been quarterback 22, 29, 12. I know he hasn't been necessarily elite as far as fantasy production goes, but he's been consistent. And, like I said, with the volatility of corners, that does go for something.
Yeah, so I have him a little higher than you, not much.
Interesting. All right, well, who do you got in tier number 3?
All right. In tier 3, speaking of these guys, at 15, I've got Sauce Gardner, 14, Pat Surtain, 13, Martin Emerson, and 12, Nate Hobbs.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting on this. I have number 13, Christian Gonzalez, 12, Paulson Adebo, 11, Denzel Ward, and 10, Trayvon Diggs. So I'm not surprised how high you have Nate Hobbs. I know you love Nate Hobbs, and he's an impact player. I wanted to put him higher. He just can't stay healthy. That's the problem.
That is the one problem with him, yes.
But if he were to stay on the field, the guy is electric.
Right. And he, like you mentioned, Teron Johnson in that nickel position, that's where he plays. And he's very good at it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just was hard to deny him because he is so good, but that is the one knock on the man that he can't play a full season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I did not. This will be interesting because we're talking Browns corners here. And this might have been, we talked about this. It was like, are we going to overlook somebody? I do not have Martin Emerson in my top 24. Do you have Denzel Ward in your top 24?
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I don't have Emerson, which might have been a mistake on him because I know he had a really good rookie year. But I don't know. I mean, maybe you rated him as high as you did. So what made you put him as high as you did?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about consistency, right? For our league, both years he's averaged 13 points a game, and then he had 224 points his rookie year, 217 in our league this year. He had no interceptions his rookie year. He's got up to 4 this year, but then his pass deflections, he's had 15 and 14, which is partially why he's been scoring so well. And then he's been right around the 60 tackle mark the 2 years as well. So he's been consistent player, and the Browns have a pretty good defense and multiple corners, so I feel like he can continue to play at that level.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good case for him. might have caught me flat-footed on this one. You're making a good case as to why Martin Emerson is deserving of being in that top 24. I mean, it's hard to deny what you said.
And he's only 23.
He's only 23. Yeah, I mean, he was. This might be a guy overlooked. He was 17 for us this past season. So, I mean, that's pretty good. That might be something I go back to the woodshed. But, I think one of those things where it's like even last year, you had even Greg Newsome in our league did pretty good, which he really hasn't done that much at all. He's been, I kind of view him as a bust. But, yeah, you're right. Cornerback 16 and quarterback 17. Kudos to you, Joe. I might need to relook on that one. But I like Denzel Ward a lot. Guy who I think is underrated. Believe it or not, I didn't think he was as young as he was. Only 27 years old. Gnarly. He's been cornerback 46, 8, 28, 7. So I think he's a really good player. Interesting that you have him higher. I'm assuming you have. I know how much you like Adebo. I'm assuming Adebo and is Trayvon Diggs later as well.
Yeah. Yep. Both of those guys are later.
Okay. Interesting. Why Sauce Gardner so low? I'm a little shocked by that. You feel like just people aren't targeting him?
Well, I just frankly don't think he's that good.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, so I talk about
bring out the hot sauce, Joe.
Yeah. I talk about Pat Surtain not having the players opposite of this guy. Well, this guy's on a way better defense. They have pass rushers on the Jets, and he has a halfway decent quarterback on the other side of the field to him, and they've had one of the best secondaries. And yet, in our league, he doesn't really produce that much. I mean, he's another guy, right? We haven't really seen him get his hands on the ball, interceptions, pass deflections are there, but I don't know. He had such a great rookie year, and then this year, not so good. So I'm just, I don't know. I'm worried about him that he's just kind of a name and overhyped, and the best thing he does is hold people, and that's what he got away with in college at Cincinnati.
Oh boy. I do agree. He does hold. I want to make a point on this. I am really high on Christian Gonzalez. The guy played really good in the limited games that he played. I think based on what he showed, and he was a combine warrior. I mean, super athletic. I actually wasn't that high on him, to be honest with you, but I was shocked to see how well he did in that Patriots system. I don't know. I don't think it'll change anything because Gerard Mayo basically had a pretty big say in the defense anyway, so I don't know how much that's going to change versus Bill Belichick. But he's a guy that I think could really take the next step this season so long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just in a short sample that we have as well, he performed pretty well in our league, and the Patriots just seem to know how to. That is one thing. Like they just seem to know how to produce the cornerback position.
They really do.
They seem to get the guys, and they perform, and they're good in our fantasy leagues. And then they don't always, a lot of them don't get the second contract with them, but then it's usually halfway okay. I mean, J.C. Jackson was a world beater with them. They let them go. Chargers pay him a boatload of money, and he was just a headache for him.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, J.C. Jackson was probably the worst. Now he's probably going to get cut. So he might be done. But even Malcolm Butler, remember, he was an undrafted guy. They turned him into something. So you're right. I mean, we'll see if Gerard Mayo could continue to do that. So who do you got in Tier 2, Joe?
All right. In Tier 2, at number 11, I have Charvarius Ward. At 10, I have Denzel Ward. 9, Cam Taylor-Britt. 8, L'Jarius Sneed. And 7, Trayvon Diggs.
Oh, boy. Number 9, I've got Jalen Ramsey. 8, Roswell Douglas. 7, Charvarius Ward. 6, Jerron Bland. 5, Trent McDuffie. And 4, Derek Stingley. Cam Taylor-Britt, I do not have in my top 24. But I'm interested why you have him in there. He definitely seems to make I'll say this based on what I looked at, progression wise, he's going in the right direction.
Yeah. I like the player. I liked him heading into last year, and then he put a boost in his performance the Bengals really need him at the cornerback position, and I just like that he's a bigger physical corner as well. That I think is just going to he could just continue to take that progression forward here.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a guy I'm going to want to monitor heading into the offseason. It'll be so interesting. A lot of these guys are free agents, like we talked about. It'll be interesting to see how the landscape changes in the secondary. So I wouldn't say it's great, but I'd say it's a decent cornerback class as well. So that'll be also interesting to see where these guys go in the draft. I disagree with you, obviously, on Roswell Douglas. I think he's going to stay longer. He's just been too good. And with Jalen Ramsey, I understand your concern. I think at most he was just due to the injury. I think he has just been such a good player, even in fantasy. So I'm not as concerned about that. But time will tell if you're right on that. But I couldn't shy away from what he's been able to do. I'm a little surprised how low you have L'Jarius Sneed. Is that just because he's a free agent and you don't know where he's going to go? Because in our league, he's been cornerback 8, 2, 15, and 24, and he's 27 years old.
Yeah, I mean, he's 27, and yeah, the fact that he's a free agent definitely concerns me, depending on where he goes. I know the Chiefs are talking about franchise tagging him. We'll see if that ends up happening. But yeah, the fact that he's a free agent definitely is a concerning one to me. But there's no denying he's been a very consistent corner in our league. So definitely, had to get him top 10.
I do have to say I was very close to putting McDuffie and Stingley in my tier 1, and I'm pretty sure you probably have them in there. Stingley showed some amazing flashes, I think, this year. I think he really took a step forward. I always thought Sauce was better than Stingley. But just the question is whether Stingley is going to stay healthy. He still kind of dealt with that, but you saw the potential, what he's been able to do, and I'll like him even better if a guy like Xavier Howard comes in. I mean, that would be amazing for him. And McDuffie, another guy who's extremely talented. You saw how talented he was through the playoffs. In our league, he also has done pretty good. He was cornerback 10 last year, and the previous year was cornerback 50. It'll be interesting to see if L'Jarius Sneed is no longer there. Will that impact things? He plays the nickel, so I mean it might not necessarily impact things. But that second corner for the Chiefs really wasn't that good. You had Sneed, you had McDuffie, but then the other guy, he wasn't all that good, which impacted that defense. Just goes to show, when they had it, that second year for the Chiefs was no joke with Sneed and McDuffie. And I know you and I talk a lot about you probably shouldn't prioritize a corner, go after another position, but they really had such an impact on that team, I believe.
Yeah, they definitely did, especially McDuffie. He just does so many things for that defense. They like to bring him on blitzes, and then his ability to just read and react, especially, I just remember watching him, especially in the playoffs, the screens that he's just able to blow up in the backfield as well. He's just a really good player.
I'm assuming that you have some of the guys I'm assuming Deron Bland, Stingley, and McDuffie. I'm going to be hearing from you in a little bit about those guys.
Yeah, I just have 6 people in my tier 1.
Okay. And then as far as the only other guy I think we got to talk about here is Charvarius Ward. He was an interesting one for me. Decided to put him in tier 2. It's just hard to deny what he's been able to do in our league, Joe. He was cornerback 1 last year, 12, 26, 27. He's been pretty consistent. And even PFF graded him really high. That was kind of the thing that pushed me over the edge because, I actually had remembered during the season that the Niners were kind of susceptible to the pass. But even PFF graded Ward as the 5th best corner. So at that point, I was like, I feel like he's deserving of this tier.
Yeah, definitely. I think the one reason I didn't have him a little higher was just the fact that I don't know if he's going to come back to the 49ers or not. And then he really shot up in points in our league this year. I mean, he's
still under contract, though.
From what I saw, he's going to be a free agent.
No, I believe he's under contract. Yeah, he's on the team in 2024.
Do
They have an
out
out.
now? Yeah,
They
that's
have
what
an
I was
out.
worried about.
But the
Yeah.
dead cap is $17.19 million. His cap is $18.4 million.
So yeah, I mean, I guess for 1 year that makes you feel better with them, but that's an extra year. But it's just interesting though that he was with San Fran in 2022 as well, but he scored 112 more points this year.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it really caused it. I mean, I know he had a ton more pass deflections. He doubled that. He also had 4 more interceptions, while still having 15 less tackles than he did the year before. So I just didn't know if this 340-point performance this year was just kind of an anomaly, or if that other number in 2022 is more accurate, which is still really good. And that's kind of where he's been majority of his career is, what he did in 2022.
All right, Joe, let's round it out. I want to hear who's in your tier 1.
All right, here we go, Steve. At number 6, I got Deron Bland. 5, Paulson Adebo. 4, Tyreek Stevenson. 3, Derek Stingley Jr. 2, Trent McDuffie. And number 1, Devin Witherspoon.
Okay, at number 3, I've got L'Jarius Sneed. Number 2, I've got Sauce Gardner. And number 1,
Oh, come on.
Number 1,
Just because he's on your fantasy team? Give me a break.
Devin Witherspoon is number 1.
Yeah. Oh, Sauce Gardner, too, is a travesty.
I don't know how you could say that when it comes to Sauce Gardner. I disagree with you. He had 20 pass deflections in his rookie year, and then he had 11 pass deflections in this previous year. So, I mean, that's not all that much different. He had 2 interceptions less. He had a total tackle of 57 compared to 75. I mean, and he missed an extra game. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like it's as much of a fall off. We saw what he was done in his rookie year. I think you're right in the fact that he is a little overrated. I don't think teams are, saying, oh, we can't target Sauce Gardner. I don't think that's the case, because I do think that he holds quite a bit. So he's not one of those guys that I'm kind of concerned that he's on an island, like Revis Island, that he's not gonna get targeted the ball. I think he will, because I think he's susceptible to double moves, and he kind of holds on and stuff like that. So I don't know why. I mean, you've got him ranked. What number was that again? You ranked him a lot lower. You ranked him at 15 compared to me. So we have quite the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. You were enamored with this guy coming out. You've got him on your fantasy team, and I don't know. I mean, we see a lot of guys perform in the rookie years and then kind of drop off. But see, that's the thing. Like, he shouldn't have had a drop off. Like, he's got DJ Reed on the opposite side of him. They've got a good D line. Like, I think if Surtain was on that defense, he'd be performing a lot better than Sauce Gardner. And
Okay,
he's
Broncos fan.
Surtain. No, but look at the points in our fantasy league. Surtain has had more points. Even though I was disappointed with Surtain's performance, he still scored over 200 points, which Sauce did not do.
I get that. You and I both have Devin Witherspoon as the consensus 1. I think he has to be that guy. I mean, he's such a great tackler. He tackles in the open field, but he does great in coverage. I mean, he exceeded my expectations this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I thought he was the number 1 corner that I would have taken in last year's draft class, and he went out and showed it. He's that physical type of corner, like you said. He tackles well. With his age, it's hard for him not to be the consensus number 1.
16 pass deflections on top of it as well. I mean, he's a clear 1 in my view. All those guys are interesting too from a young youth standpoint. I guess I would just disagree with you. I just don't think that Stevenson and Adebo are, well, I mean, I think Stingley is a little more based on potential, because I think he just has the potential. But I feel like McDuffie and Witherspoon might be a notch above. I would say those 1, 2, 3 are a notch above Stevenson and Adebo for me personally.
I mean, that's probably fair. Like I said, I had a hard time breaking off these tier points. But I was just kind of going based off of how these guys scored. And most of these guys were averaging right around the 20-point mark. So I had I kind of left him in there. But yeah, I really like the potential of Derek Stingley. I mean, as you mentioned, he just if the guy could just stay healthy, I know we've seen this quite a bit with a few guys here, but
Yeah.
if Stingley stays healthy, they get another beneficiary on the other end. He should be really good.
One guy I struggle with was Deron Bland. I think that it could be recency bias. He had so many picks. He did get a decent amount of picks even in his rookie year, but we got to remember Trayvon Diggs didn't play for most of the year. I don't know if Gilmore comes back.
Gilmore's going to be back.
No, I don't either. But you saw Bland get absolutely torched by DK Metcalf. So when they played on
that's going to be perfect
game. No, I know.
Him and Trayvon Diggs get burned, so they'll get targeted a ton, which means they'll always be fantasy relevant for you. It's the best.
True.
I mean, and they both are major gamblers when it comes to interceptions. The one thing I had trouble with Bland was just the fact that there's no way he's going to get all those pick sixes. So, trying to figure out okay, so his points are overshot, but if he doesn't get those, but still gets a decent amount of tackles and pass deflections and still gets some interceptions, but they just don't go for touchdowns per se. I mean, we both have him at 6, ironically enough.
So, Joe, we made it. We went through our top 24 Dynasty cornerbacks rankings with tiers. If you're new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, that notification bell. We do around 3 videos a week, and we're relatively a new channel. We've been, doing this for 2 years, and we're getting close to 500 subscribers. So we would be appreciative if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. In our next episode, we're wrapping it up. Unless Joe feels that we should start talking about kickers, we've got our safety rankings with tiers coming up to round up all our rankings and tiers episode. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.